Hour.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
We get you.
Here's Johnny.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Hour, the show where we discuss, debate and disagree on all things horror. We're your hosts, Ben.
Hi, everyone.
George, and of course, Yutaka.
Hello.
And today's topic is one of a film that Yutaka has been talking about for a long time, I think since it first came out. He's been obsessed about this film and we were finally so excited to watch it. It is, of course, My Valentine, now streaming on Hulu. We are joined today by writer and director Maggie Levin. We also have star Britt Baron. And of course, we also have the composers of the soundtrack, Keeley Bumford, aka Dresage, and Mark Hadley. We're super excited to have you all here today. We're going to take a deep dive into this topic, and we're super excited to have you all with us. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us. This is really cool.
Yeah,
really
thank
cool.
you. We were just saying
also,
this is like a nice little, because we did the premiere and then the pandemic happened. So this is a nice little like reprise of like, oh yeah, this is a really cool thing that we did and it was really fun and celebrate it.
I also just rewatched. I haven't, you go through the phase where you're making the film where you watch it hundreds of times. Like I don't know, I have watched this movie more than anything else in my whole life. And I'm a frequent rewatcher. But I just watched the first 10 minutes for the first time in like a year and a half. And I was like, oh man, I love this movie. Is that just hard, like embarrassing thing to say? I'm like, I love my own movie.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Me too.
Just kick off with a little ego trip.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
we have arrived.
I really, as George says, or stated, I don't shut up about this film because I do. I probably watch it at least once a month. I love horror. I find that horror, especially in this current climate, it just calms me. So I love the fact that it's got Britt. One, also, I'll just say you've been in several films that I love, and you also voice one of my favorite video game characters. So, I mean, that just already, I'm like, oh, well, I'm sold. And then the soundtrack I have on loop. It's just one of my favorites. It's part of like my anxiety mix where I just need to zone out. It's just in rotation. So with that, it's these two they're like, Yutaka, come
I
on.
love that a movie that is like driven by anxiety is something that soothes you. Like that's wonderful to me. I mean, honestly, like I watch Palm Springs routinely to calm myself down. And I do think that if I ever talk to the filmmakers, they would be like, you find this relaxing? I'm like, I do. That's awesome.
Palm Springs, excellent film, by the way. Just one of my favorite movies. It jumped up to probably my favorite comedy of all time because of just Kristen Milioti, who I have always loved, and How I Met Your Mother, and then she finally got something so incredible with that movie, which I adored. And then I was delighted to see it get Golden Globe love. So great choice of movie.
Love that movie.
Well, we'll start off then, for Yutaka. It's obviously his favorite film. So we thought, for those of you at home, we want to give you an overview, and Yutaka is probably the best person to give you that overview. So Yutaka, tell us about the film.
It's true. I actually just rewatched this as well. But just a high level overview of My Valentine. And the reason just giving a high level is also, we want to spoil too much because I actually still, if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's on Hulu. It's part of Blumhouse Into the Dark anthology series, which I'm a huge fan of. So I just, the high level overview is Valentine decides to perform for the first time in years. And throughout the night, she'll have to mentally and physically fight for her survival. So cue the deadbeat ex, a copy of herself, tons of blood, therapy, as we talked about anxiety earlier, and then just some really killer music. And with that, that's I will again, as you when I say it's kind of like my anxiety mix, it's just something the beats, but also we'll get into the lighting, everything. There's something for every sense. And so I'm just a big fan of this film for that. And so I guess I'll start off with the first question because I do love a good slasher film, but I really do appreciate the elements of this film. And I think now more than ever, mental health is important. And as we talked about anxiety, I would be curious, is there anything that you learned from this film that you apply to your real life? And this is for each of you.
Man. Well, I mean, like, this is the experience of making this film was a giant like in a point of transformation in my own life. So it fills a part of my personal narrative that's like it cannot be removed from the story of my own mental health journey that, you know, I'm still on. They're all permanent. You're never like, all right, I'm fixing myself and now I'm done. I'm cooked. This is but yeah, it was really I think the things that I take away from it that I felt that I feel most sort of proud of within it are those little pieces of learning to separate yourself from codependent habits. But that's really, that's like, it's in there. There's a top line level of that, but it's also really buried in the mix of the movie because we are like, you know, bashing people's faces in and stuff also. Anybody else?
I mean, I feel like from an artist standpoint, I obviously was living in Valentine's world throughout that. And I think there just are a lot of through lines for actors. It's such an isolating industry. I think obviously now living through COVID, it's even more isolating.
Yes.
And I think this idea of like finding your identity, finding who you are, how you want to present yourself as an artist to the world, all of that really resonated with me just as Britt. And I think following her journey for that month that we shot, I got a lot out of that. I mean, she goes from, you know, totally kind of being this broken person to really by the end reclaiming what she created in a sense. I mean, taking that back. And so I think that's just empowering as any actor in this like crazy social media filled worlds where you really have to figure out who am I and how do I present, what version of myself do I present to the world? And just like some confidence. I think she finds her confidence that I'm always trying to find in my own life. So that it was nice playing that character for me personally.
And I really enjoyed, well, Maggie and I just had such a, like, when I was sort of coming up with the story in terms of a song and sort of like getting from the early stages to really brainstorm like the palette of, you know, emotion and experience she's having, and also sort of what kind of sonic space I'm using to create the songs with. Writing that journey for Valentine through song was like really empowering for me as well in the same way, because it's like, yeah, you know, like you kind of need to write your own anthems to like get yourself out of bed in the morning sometimes as an artist within any part of this industry. And I think that that was very, like, I felt like so much protection towards her that I was like, I'm going to write this song for her and it's going to work.
What great anthems they are. They still pop up on my phone and I'm like, oh my God,
Yay.
These are just jams.
No, there is no, this movie is its songs, you know, like I called it a sneaky musical early on, but in retrospect, I think of it as just like a full-on musical, because what Keeley wrote, it propels the drama, and it also is it's what you take home with you, I think, at the end of the movie experience, are those songs, which are iconic. And it being a TV movie, the only tragedy of this being a TV movie is that those songs are not like giant like radio. I'm like, can we get this somewhere so everyone can hear the song? Anyway,
even those when you talked about the first 10 minutes of the film, like that opening, that beat, it just like sets such a great tone and pace for what we're about to embark on.
And just as a song, I mean, as anybody making music for that film, I was like, Maggie, you are being too good to me to give me this much like opening space of a song in a movie. But
but that's, I think, being the captain of a creative ship, you just hopefully get fantastic people on board, and and then you get out of their fucking way. And I feel like I was very fortunate on this film on every level. I pretty much just got to hire fantastic people and get out of their way. and that's cast, that's music, that's production design, all of it. Mark, I think it's your turn.
I just think Maggie did a great job at also hitting realities of the music industry with the way that people try to control artists and can be quite abusive. And so I guess it just sort of, as somebody who's navigated the music industry for about a decade, like it was sort of affirming in ways. And what Britt was saying about finding your identity, that resonated as well. Yeah.
Nice. I agree in terms of just anyone trying to find their identity. I think that, yes, with social media things, I think the landscape of things have changed. It's funny because we talked about Blair Witch at one point, and I'm the boomer of the group, so I remember going to see that in theaters. And the marketing campaign was genius because the internet was in its infancy, and people were like, is that really happening? Did that happen? Where are these people? And so it's just interesting. And now social media, unfortunately, in some aspects, kind of rules our lives. So it's
in all aspects.
Yeah. So that's
as
why
we say on a podcast that's broadcasted.
It doesn't even feel like some anymore. Anyways, that's another story.
But yeah, that's partially why I also just this movie resonated. So with that, though, I will give it up to Ben for his question.
Yeah, I have many questions for Maggie, for Mark, all of you, because this film really did have a really big impact on me and I liked it very much. But I'm just going to get this out of the way very quickly because, yes, we are a horror podcast, but I do have plenty of questions for all of you. But I would be very regretful if I did not mention how much of a fan that I am of Glow, because it genuinely is my favorite series of all time, and it has been since it came out in 2017, focusing on such strong themes of friendship and family with amazing characters and performances. I loved how it showcased what it's like to try and create art in Hollywood, and that can either tear people apart or it can bring them together. Featuring some of the most funny and emotional characters and situations ever put to screen, Glow is truly a show like no other. Back in 2019, one of the things I did for my birthday was binge season 3, which was the last season, unfortunately, that we got with my mother the whole day. It was the best thing ever. So, Britt, first of all, I just have to say thank you so much for being a part of something so incredibly special to me, and I'm sure many others across the world as well. And even though we won't get to see the final season, the characters will live on forever. So I just had to say thank you so much for being a part of Glow.
Thank you so much, Ben. I don't know if it's just because we didn't get our final season, but that, like, whoa, really? That was very, really, really kind. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching, and it'll live on somehow. Maybe someday we'll get like a final movie or some way to tie it up.
A movie, a novelization, Netflix, give us literally anything. Like,
I know. There were some brilliant things, but one day maybe the world will know for how this was all going to tie up. But
I have hope. So yeah, I just had to say thank you so much, because that show is literally everything to me. And with that, I will pass the baton on to George, and we'll get to the questions about my Valentine. But just thank you so much.
I love it.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that now.
That is so sweet.
But no, I'm good. Yeah, Ben was so excited about this, so I'm so glad that he got to do that. So
I mean, I remember when it was canceled. I have to say, I remember Ben that day.
I cried. I couldn't believe it. I was fuming.
You had some harsh words for Netflix.
Oh yeah, one of those. Just another COVID.
Yeah. There's been a lot of the obvious grief and loss of what's happened in the world, and so many projects like that, really amazing things that have just been stopped before their time because of what the business went through. So
I feel like we were so lucky to get even this shot so quickly. I mean, we shot it in September, was it? I think of 2019
into September.
Yeah, and then it was out February. I mean, right before everything, and that was such a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
Who would have known if that wasn't our? I just feel like the world stopped. Like, when would this have come out? If I don't know.
If it were a more traditional movie, it would not.
It just
and the blessing and the curse of the Into the Dark schedule. I usually like to tell people, because it is unusual. Most movies take years to make. Mm-hmm. And this was, I pitched this concept to Blumhouse in May of 2019. It was greenlit and written in June and July. We prepped through half of July, shot it in August and September, which also means that, Keeley wrote those songs in like 3 weeks.
We got dinner on July 4th. I remember, because there was an earthquake and we were at the restaurant and we were like, holy shit. And we got dinner and you were like, I have this, you like totally downplayed this project to me. You're like, I have this like thing and like I might need some music. And I was like, cool. And you're like, cool. So I'm like actually a huge fucking boss, and I have this really sick thing that I'm writing, and also like, can you write songs that are good in a couple weeks?
And not to undersell, also, like, once we got into post in the middle of September, I needed to have a locked and final done deal cut by the beginning of December, like before Christmas, I think. Am I getting that timeline right? You guys had to put together the whole score in like 0 time.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So if the movie
crazy.
Feels chaotically made, it's because it was. And I also, the reason why it has so many deeply personal, almost like diary entry like aspects about it, is because it was like making it in real time. And that's why I was like, I was originally supposed to I have a script of mine that's like still in development, trying to make it as an indie, that was going to maybe be converted into one of these episodes. But I knew that because of the timeline, there's like 20 of the same 2 people, 20 timelines of the same 2 people in this other movie. And I was like, there's no way that we can do that in this shoot schedule. So I pitched this other thing, also knowing I was like a huge fan of Glow, a huge fan of Britt. And I was like, I also know another actress who looks exactly like Britt. So maybe if I can just, and like everything worked out. But it was, it was a battle at times. Like, I also, there was a whole casting process where, I was required to look at other actresses.
Yeah.
And I was like, here's the thing. I know I already brought you everything on a platter, and please just let me do this. So there were a lot of phone calls where it was like, please just let me do this. And eventually they were like, okay, fine.
That's brilliant. So obviously there's so many elements to this film, so many parts, and obviously we will talk later, obviously with Mark and Keeley, about the soundtrack and the score and all that. But something that I don't know what it is about lighting that you might be able to tell. I have a thing with lighting, and right now this isn't just, I love pink, well, bisexual lighting, I believe is the term.
Yes.
But that is the lighting that I have constantly in my life, because it's just even though it's so calming, but it's also like cool, and like it's so much. So I have to ask, as the lighting dweeb of the 3, was the color palette of this movie something that was premeditated from the beginning, or was it something that organically came about during production?
So I had almost everything in my previous catalog of work is done in heavy bylighting or like extremely neon. And I had this idea for about a week and a half that I was going to make something that like gritty, that looked like fucking Taxi Driver or something, like super punk and grimy. And then every designer who came in with a presentation was like, it's purple. I was like, okay. And when Anna, the DP, came in with her presentation, I was like, well, I'm in love with this. I love these colors. And it goes with what we have in mind for the wig design. Everything was ultimately built around the wig design. It was like baby blue hair was the first, like, it's gonna be that. And then on from there. But yeah, I mean, it was obviously once we got our color scheme, we just, and I also have a tendency as a creative to be like, there's no such thing as too much for me. Like, I'm just not interested. I'm interested in grounded, realistic performance and like emotional content, but I love to just create a world. And I, just like you're doing with your room, I do the same thing. Like, that's why it's taking me so long to get settled in this house, is because every room I'm like, well, what world am I entering into when I'm in this bedroom? I need it to feel like an environment. Yeah, that's a very long answer to your question.
That's the best answer. No, but I agree with that. Literally, I don't know how I could go back to, like, the other day I was looking for something in my room and I had to put the main light on, and I was like, this is really uncomfortable. I was
disgusting. Hate an overhead light. No.
Yeah, I went back to my parents' house and I was like, can we not have like some color in here? Like, this is really like, I need like dark tones.
Yeah, can you guys get an LED bulb in here? I really can't with the,
let's move with the times, not to plug Philips Hue, but other brands are available, but
oh yeah,
that's what I've got. And I get the whole, it just changes an atmosphere. Like, all my friends who come into my room, like, I'm like, let's watch a film, they're like, oh my god, like, this really like changes like the watch. So I watched the film with these lights because I'd known from the trailers and stuff that these are the lights that were in it, and I was like, so I felt really immersed, which was great.
That's awesome. I love that.
Well, I'll move back to Yutaka then with another question.
Yes. As now we're all talking about lighting, and so I was kind of curious then too. Of course, so My Valentine is part of the Into the Dark anthology, and it actually already sounds like, how much, I guess, creative control was given to you by Hulu then, and it sounds
Hulu isn't. Yeah, I mean, everybody. It's a really amazing thing that Blumhouse is not doing the Into Dark series anymore, but they're continuing to do these sort of smaller budget films in a TV model. Now they're made slightly higher budgets for Amazon, and I think that they're going to do it for somewhere else as well. And it's really sort of serving the function that originally Blumhouse was founded on. We're going to make these small budget movies with brand new directors. And so this is really like a creative pipeline to continue the same idea, even though the company has grown and is doing these like blockbuster movies with Universal. But to answer your question specifically, Hulu was an amazing creative partner. And I think there was, so because of the schedule, there was a certain amount of, once everybody was locked in, all of the oversight had to sort of move on to the next movie, and they were in it with me and giving feedback with all of us, but I would say like we're given a pretty long leash, especially during production. And yeah,
that's great. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Blumhouse, and I mean, I was upset to see that we're no longer seeing the series, but I still like everything that they've been putting out. And I mean, I'm excited for
I think,
Halloween,
yeah,
but
yeah, I think they've sort of undone the holiday theme, but they're still continuing to do this model in other places. Yeah, but it's like, I'm really happy, particularly with like the music component of it, that they were just incredibly hands off about it. But I mean, also, like, once you heard the demos, what were you gonna say? Like, I have notes. Who has notes on that?
You'd be surprised. Anybody and everybody can have a note.
But I appreciate like, do you have feedback? I was like, no. My feedback is you're a genius.
With that, then, Ben, I'll let you go. And again, yes, I can't wait to actually talk about the soundtrack. I will say, I felt like, obviously, too, as you were stating that this is essentially musical, I thought as I was watching this that the soundtrack, the songs, the score, it was just like another starring role in this movie. That's how much it just, everything felt like it was so integrated. And I just, oh man, it's
well, and the movie, I'm glad that this is the, not to discredit anybody else who's involved in the movie, but I'm glad that this is the group that's talking about it, because to me, the success of the premise rides on two things, which is Valentine's performance and the quality of the music, and both of those things were like top notch. So I got really lucky. Can you imagine if the songs had just like kind of sucked?
I don't know if
you'd
be
like, like, cool, man. Don't remember anything about that song.
I think you can let it go, girl. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
don't chase the credit for that so hard.
Well, this film has one of my favorite things about it is that it has very similar themes to two other 2020 films, some of the best of the year, The Invisible Man and Promising Young Woman, all of which see women take matters into their own hands and fight back against the men who have done them wrong, much like Valentine does in the final act against Royal. So are you happy to see more stories like this in Hollywood? Because for a very long time, there never would have been stories like this. And so I'm really happy that we have My Valentine and that we have The Invisible Man out there. I don't know how to finish that, but I just
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, Invisible Man is amazing, and I know exactly the creative connective tissue that you're talking about there. I mean, the sort of vengeance against your abuser as a movie topic wasn't it's like hit a point of actual popularity, which is it's really cool. And like, some of the most incredible feedback that I've gotten about this movie has to do with that specific thing. I get DMs from time to time from people being like, I saw my relationship in this, or my previous relationship, or I'm a parent and I had a daughter who is in an abusive relationship, that the language of this was like exactly reflected in it. And that's one of the reasons to make film at all. I think film and TV is to let people know that they're not alone, and I think that hopefully you're not acting out to the operatic level of this movie and Promising Young Woman. But there is something, it was for me personally, and I certainly have heard it out in the world, like there's a catharsis that you get from seeing the abuser vanquished really violently in the way that you just cannot in real life. That's really, I don't know. It feels like it feels like a good thing to be doing, even though it's still like, I'm like, murder is not good. We're all clear. Don't murder anybody.
But I think there is something cathartic. It's like, Tarantino movies. And when Maggie and I first met and she described the premise of this movie, I mean, there's themes that I think any woman can identify with in some way. I mean, to different extents, but I think
Mhm.
there's an underlying theme that just I immediately felt drawn to and identified. And I think also working with there were a ton of females in the cast. I think working with Maggie, who wrote and directed it, who's,
Mhm.
also, it just was coming from Glow, especially. I think it was just a really exciting collaborative experience. And Maggie pulled in a bunch of like friends that were trusted, and it was just like a very cohesive, safe, exciting place, especially as a female, especially given the material. But I think adding the element of like the slasher horror with all the music and lighting, for me, I was drawn to that, because I think otherwise this could like really gear towards a completely different style of film.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's like a very bleak, just straight drama version of it.
Oh yeah.
If you're not cutting away to like the music videos and yeah, and and then there is also like the presence of Treasure, who unwittingly is just a comedy act, at least to me. Like, not that she's not, that performance doesn't have like a complexity to it as well, but I think Anna just can't help but be very funny.
The way she was able to like sometimes turn on a dime of like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. And that gives some padding, and I don't know how it was for you, Britt, but Britt, you had so much emotional heavy lifting to do in this movie. like big, like there was also like a 3-page monologue at the end there that you just were like powered through. Can we just spend the rest of your podcast just talking about? Can I just talk for the rest of your podcast about how much I love Britt and Keeley and Mark? Is that all right with everybody? No, sorry. Ask a question. Never mind. Bye.
We were talking about that monologue too. That's one of our favorite moments and scenes, because it's so emotional and so raw. It's funny because Ben and I normally don't agree on movies at times, and he was like, I really like this. I go, what, Ben, you like something I liked? And then we're like, well, all right. And then when we both started talking about the same scene, we're like, well, this is just out of this world. But that scene was, I'll let you, I mean, Ben, you were highly giving praise on that, and that's one of your favorite scenes.
Yeah, it was. It's at a point in the movie where Valentine has been through so much, and Royal has done so much damage in the film, but there was just something so emotional about it, where she just said, just kill me, because that would be better than having to think about you or knowing that you're out there in the world. That would be a better fate than having to continue like this. And I just thought that was really, really impactful. And so it is a great turning point towards the end of the movie when we see Treasure, and that she, after that little confrontation, that amazing monologue at the end, but Treasure, she isn't the innocent little pop princess that we believe she was at the beginning. Do you believe if she had lived, she would have eventually outgrown Royal once she no longer needed him?
I want to hear everyone else's theories about this, because I have an idea, but I just want to hear what everybody else thinks.
I say yes. I think she would have outgrown him for sure. Because I think that she's starting to notice, she's starting to realize, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mark, go ahead.
But she had that crazy turn though. My songs. Nice. I don't know. It might have taken a while.
We definitely have lines that we like say, because we both just like those end
iconic
scenes.
Lines.
Oh my
God.
Lines. Those end scenes, we were just like, running back and back and back and working on the music and scoring them. And yeah, there's just some of those moments where I just will never, ever forget that. I mean, Maggie, you two, you're like in the edit bay, watching it it's just the lines. They're so good.
Is that a no?
Is that a no? We say it randomly, and it's just like,
Also, the problem again with the schedule of how I wrote it is like a lot of them, if they don't talk like somebody who I was very close to or I'm very close to, they just talk like me. So like sometimes I'll go da da da, please and thank you, and then people who've seen the movie will like turn and be like, and I'm like, I know he talks like me. It's terrible. It's just how I talk. Sorry. Britt, what do you think? Does Treasure?
I don't think so. But that's also because, I mean, I think part of at least my journey through was trying so hard, my objective, to convince Treasure to see the light. And Maggie did such a brilliant job of, as the audience and as Valentine, you think you're like this close where she's just about to kind of open her eyes, and then she's like, no, like every time. So, with that script, I have to believe that Treasure would disappoint us and just ride that wave of fame and happily do anything she can to maintain her career and even maybe step on Royal. But I don't know if she would ever come out and be like, these weren't my songs and I've taken on this persona. That's my
Yeah, I think Treasure is about what's best for Treasure at all costs.
Yes.
Always. So if it serves her to stay with him, great. If not, he's out of here. That's and there are, unfortunately, there are people like that. Like, you hope, and that's it's an interesting area to play around with, like, sort of compassion and also and responses to abuse. Some people, everybody responds a little differently, but there are sort of categories that you sort of fall into, and I think the willing Stockholm syndrome one is what I was like going for with Treasure.
Totally,
succeeded.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the score and the soundtrack, of course. And I'm really interested in how scoring a film works. Do you create this in the studio, whilst watching the edit of the film, or is this a process where you worked on it in pre-production on what the sound would be in order to get to that point?
Well, I think that each project can be, and I mean, Mark has done a lot of films as well himself, so I think that probably agree that each project can be really different. This one specifically was like, songs had to be written first because they had to be filmed too, and then I think there was like a real intentionality around creating like just something really connective and feeling all in the same world, from songs to score and production of songs to score. And so I think that what we did, and we actually took like a lot of vocal stems from the productions of the song and repurposed them into like weird things in the score. Like the opening scene, there's a bunch of like chopped Treasure vocals that are like strange and, kind of making you feel uncomfortable. And that was really intentional because it was creating this palette to find a connection between the songs but yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, I think typically you're writing music while you're watching the film so that you can hit the right beats emotionally of each scene. This film was super unique in that the palette and the substance of the film was so strong and so potent and powerful. So it almost it's like the score already existed in a way, and we just had to bring it into reality, like with the tones of the kinds of sounds that we reached for. And like Keeley was saying, the fact that we wanted that connective tissue between the songs and the score made it really sort of clear, I guess, where we were going to take it, and super fun. It was like a dream to work on a project like this, especially because it dipped into horror and we could really make these pop songs, like Keeley was saying, take elements from them and actually repurpose them into something horrific and brutal, which was super fun. And yeah. I think sometimes you can, and maybe we did this a little bit, Keeley, I don't remember, but if in the early conversations of a project, even before you've seen picture, I typically will start fleshing out some ideas, just, what's in my head based on conversations, the script, any stills that I've seen. But yeah, most of the heavy lifting happens once we're approaching like the finished locked picture.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we were doing a lot of like, obviously this is a very like dark synth, the sound design kind of score. So we were doing a lot of, I'm looking at my synths being like, which ones did we use? Like I had this really gnarly, guitar pedal, for example, that's called the Bad Comrade, and we ran one of my vocals. I think I probably sang it, but I ran it through that, and that was the scene during Nick's demise in the scene with the guitar string towards the end, and so I think that we found, like, I think that we were really guided by texture, and I think that was like with synthesis, that was with vocals being treated in a specific type of way, and then also grabbing literal sounds and kind of like custom presets I had made from the songs and bringing them to sort of start to create, you know, for example, Treasure was like a fucking anime character with the amount of like sparkles and brightness. Like that was really different than, you know, something that was maybe a little more empathic feeling for Valentine and something more like menacing and dark feeling for Royal.
Definitely. Well, I had one question actually.
It's so amazing to like unpack the and it's, I think that way with almost everyone who worked on the movie. There's so much thoughtfulness for something that was made so quickly. Particularly, there are like there's a million Easter eggs in every piece of this movie, and that it comes from just the quality of the folks that worked on it. You know, I think of myself as like a really musically literate person, but it was a joy for me to, like, when I was first hearing the cues from you guys, for you to go like, that's my voice, and that's this from this thing, and like all of that. So that was, again, watching the first 10 minutes of the film, even listening to Royal's entrance and the way that you guys remixed the knife to sort of drop into that low scary thing, and what you did with the vocal, it's great. And knowing also, like, in some of those high stress kill situations, that's Keeley screaming in the score. It's great.
Also, I want to give props to Keeley, because I can't sing. I don't know how to play an instrument. And I had no prep time.
No time.
I mean, it was literally like, okay, we're going to start next week in 3 days, and good luck. And so,
and all of a sudden you're like, you're an underrated pop star on stage, and you need to be able to perform.
And sell that. Like, you know how to play. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And my fiance is a musician. So whenever we watch anything, he's like, oh, they weren't really playing the cello or whatever it is. So I didn't want to look like a complete idiot. So Keeley really, I mean, I was like, you're my stage mom. Handheld me, taught me, wow. Okay, and I really had to practice. Okay, I'm pressing this here, this, and when we were shooting, she was right off of the camera and would help me with certain cues, and help me sell that I'm actually singing this, that I am a pop star, how you carry yourself. I mean, it was that's a lot. And you were so patient and taught me quickly, and were there, you know, really giving cues right off camera. It was so, I couldn't have done it without, you know, somebody like that, that's really like supporting and not making me feel like a complete rookie.
Oh, no way. No, it was so fun, because I just felt like I was saying, like I felt so much protection over Valentine, and like in my eyes in that moment, like, you are that character, obviously. So I'm like, she needs to be clearly so underrated and so talented and like so obviously meant for this. And so it was like, I also don't think I'd ever been to a set of that like level of legitimacy before. And so it was such a special thing for me to see my songs like being performed, you know, in front of a whole set,
all the background
of people, all the background actors,
really
and
fun day.
And oh my God. And I got to do that also for the Treasure Me music video, and I got to bring like my best friend from childhood to set too. So it was just like, I mean, literally I would go to set any day and do that, because it's so fun for me to see my songs like come to life in an amazing performance like that with you, Britt. So it was an honor.
Those were like the best days. It was like my scariest day, because I hate singing, but that, looking back, I'm like, those were so fun. It was actually really rewarding.
The making sure that it didn't look like dummy, like people that don't know what they're doing, was something that was important to me as well. And so I thank you for all this extra work that you guys
no, because I'm the exact same way as your fiance. I'm always like, oh God, that's not that is not a snare that's hitting when we're hearing a snare.
There was a little like School of Rock day at y'all's place where Anna went and trained on guitar with Mark, and so that she looked like she knew what she was doing also. And oh god, there was something else. I don't remember it now. Damn.
Well, because I think
when we were syncing all of the songs in the sound mix, I remember, I will never forget, because I think I have like a pretty good eye for sync, and the editor, you know, pretty good eye for sync also. And Keeley sat next to me for an hour going 2 frames this way, 2 frames that way, 1 frame this way, like, and it was blowing Andrew, the editor, who is wonderful, it was blowing his mind. And you can see how, like, I could see how annoyed he was by himself.
I was like, cool. I have some thoughts.
But you know, that level of accuracy matters to musicians, and like, so I'm really glad to hear that what Mark said of like, we kind of got it from an industry perspective, and like, hopefully we nailed it on all the technical perspectives as well. You know, I was really nuts at the poor prop department. I was like, there has to be these things on stage and none of this. What the fuck is this? Like, yeah.
Well, there was a question I had that just came to me before when we were talking about, we mentioned briefly about how you used the pop songs in the score to create kind of a creepy vibe. And I'd be interested to know, because I feel like there's something we've started to see a lot, specifically in trailers, scores for horror movies. I know people always shout out Jordan Peele for the use of, like, you know, pop or new songs that are taken a spin on them. Actually, one I remember pre-Jordan Peele was actually for, didn't do very well, but for the sequel to Blair Witch, the original teaser had the Police, Every Breath You Take, I'll Be Watching You, which was really creepy. So I did just a general question. What is there any song that you could see, you know, in your mind that would work really well in a horror movie situation? Like, what song would you like to hear like a creepy rescored version of for a horror film to all of you?
That's a great question. I mean,
I feel like you guys do a lot of those.
We do a lot
covers.
of that.
You did a cover of Sweet Dreams that's in a trailer that has, it's not a horror movie, but it has.
It's not horror, but it's definitely like, it was for Wrinkle in Time, so it's definitely like a little fantastical. I think,
Oh my god!
I listen to that all the time.
Really?
I love that trailer so much.
That's me, and that's Mark.
I used to, honestly, I still do. I used to run around the house. That I say run around the house. It came out a few years ago. I'm still 26. I used to run around the house listening to just that sound, pretending I was like in some really cool film. Like, anyway, it's just amazing.
Oh my god, that's amazing!
Awesome. That's very cool.
That's such an honor. We do a lot of stuff in the trailer space, like the amount of creepy vocal things I've, like, covers of whatever it is I've done for trailers, and Mark has done a million more types of, like, even like there's a lot of popularity in sort of remixing songs now, so like taking original stems from a song, and trying to think of some of the ones that you've done recently. Mark, you could obviously speak more than for that.
I mean, just I don't know if there's any particular song, but I will say you can do it with anything.
You can do it with anything.
Anything.
Like, you can I think actually the more like happy and bright song you take, and the more like positive lyrical content, and the darker you take it tonally, it's like, I think that's really interesting.
I saw someone do it with Baby Shark for an internal sizzle. It was genius.
That's so funny.
For like a kind of a nobody type movie, like a daddy goes vengeful. Like, it was very, very funny.
A new Jaws movie.
Yeah. But yeah, I gotta think about what my ideal one was. Like, there's one you could do for almost anything though. Like, you just gotta like.
Yeah, the lyrics have to align. That's all you need. If the lyrics speak, like the Matrix trailer that just came out has the song that's used is like about the pills, and it's brilliant.
Go Ask Alice is also just like a killer song for any that, and what's the Queen song that could be in any trailer? It was in Suicide Squad years ago.
Bohemian
Rhapsody.
Was it Bohemian Rhapsody?
They used that in one of the trailers.
Yeah. The really
All right,
great
I don't know
one.
what I'm thinking of.
Oh, was it the I Started a Joke? That was really cool. That
Amazing. Well, that song is creepy all by itself. No
Yeah.
remixing. It's like tragic song. Yeah.
I think one of my most favorite recent kind of flips, this was in Promising Young Women, but was the creepy violin version of
Toxic.
Toxic.
Yeah.
I think that,
Oh.
and I think that that's also just because like we are so in this sort of space with trailers. I think it's really interesting to see a lot of instrumental takes on songs that are just really recognizable. That don't even need a vocal or the lyric to be like, oh, are they really doing like Bootylicious and this like weird
the down tempo Crazy in Love that they did for 50 Shades rules.
Yeah.
I was actually looking for a trailerified Sexy Back a few weeks ago. I should have just called you guys and paid you to do it because it doesn't exist. Nobody's done it.
All right, well, I'll keep that in mind.
If you feel like I'm doing a show, it needs it. Yeah.
So I guess that's actually something interesting in terms of with the trailers, but I was actually thinking also in terms of Keeley and Mark. I know you guys have collaborated on multiple things. Bass Brain, I remember that the Apple, or was that Apple? Oh gosh, I hope that was Apple.
It was.
But I do. Well, I have that song, but I remember that, and then also More Giraffes. And it's interesting because when I hear those, and also Mark, I've listened to. I went back and. One, I also love the Tokyo song. I've not got to go. Had there been no pandemic, I would have been to Japan for a couple weeks this past year. So I loved listening to that. But I found it very interesting, the sounds that you guys have made and how it's just, as you said, tonally different. And I was just curious because there was such a short time frame and was there inspiration or a different approach because there was that quick turnaround to where you wanted to go? Because, I mean, I know my favorite track, and anytime I will say that comes on, if I'm typing up a work email, I can't be because I'll get real angry because it's just as soon as I hear it, I'm like, oh, nope. Gotta switch that song or go to a different avenue because it's so good, but it's so like, oh, you're angry.
Well, I think sort of what Maggie was saying earlier about how quickly this process unfolded. When things like that happen, you're not afforded time to overthink, which is good. You know, you flow and you just commit to your ideas. And also it was a really great process because there wasn't a ton of like micromanaging or really intensive revisions, really. The process was really just Maggie, Keeley, and I for the music. We didn't really hear much from anybody else, which was unique in my experience and really cool because it was empowering. So for me, I think I would just say that the time frame of it, how quickly, and just what I was saying earlier about how much it sort of jumped out at us already, the score. I don't know, it just made it a nice flow, I would say.
Yeah, and I think it's really sometimes a deadline is just a good thing, you know, like we can overthink ourselves into the ground and rearrange things a million times, but as I've learned time and time again, sometimes like my first vocal performance is the best one. So like I think that you sort of need to just be prepared for that, to like capture that initial spark and idea and obviously like refine, but I think that when you are afforded too much time to totally rethink your initial idea 10 times, then like you really get lost in what you're even trying to accomplish.
I just want to throw in here also that the reason why there's an entire, it feels only loosely connected, but the reason why there's an entire extra music video at the end, where we get to see Valentine like in her new identity, is because the movie was too short. So I just want to state for the public record that I love that video, but it was shot totally separately. That would have just been like an extra
different wig. Different wig.
Different wig.
They threw out the wig.
Oh no.
They had like repurposed the wig already. Yeah, so we got this like bonus video day to hang out together and like do our thing. Kind of just the three of us, and then my friend Alex shooting it. It was really anyway, only very tangentially related, but fun fact.
I loved the videos. They were so much fun.
Thank you. Me too. And I was really also very happy that Britt, you like got to do, because you got to do the big concert day, but getting to do your own music video is very different.
It was fun, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Living out my pop star dreams, you know?
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite things about this movie is that it's full of really, really vibrant characters. But unfortunately, one character I would love to see more was Julie. So I have to ask, Britt, what do you think that the relationship between Valentine and Julie was like that we haven't seen, because we only saw a very small amount of their friendship? And so how did you go about making sure that bond seems so strong, even though we had such little time to see them together?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that just relies on Maggie's writing and on the script and what's already on the page. But Anna's so talented, first of all. She's just, I mean, such a professional. And I think that she really had to sell a lot more than I did in terms of making it very clear that this is a person, and maybe the only person really in Valentine's life at this point, that is in her corner, that has her back, that, you know, everybody needs that person that's like, get back in the ring, I believe in you. Everything that maybe without her, I don't even know if Valentine would have been able to reclaim herself. And I think even when she's kind of that scene when she's what's it called, stabbed, and she, you know, there's that look she gives me, the look that's like, just go, you know, go and she gives Valentine the strength. So a lot of that was way more on Anna, I think, to sell and she did I think a phenomenal job, because you're right, there really isn't that much. I guess we had those flashbacks, which I loved that scene too, outside the convenience store, where you just see that these are, there's those female friendships that are like, where you get to really be yourself in your most vulnerable sense. You don't have to filter yourself, and that is clear in their friendship. And clearly Julie sees her at her worst, knows her capabilities, and is totally there. And that had to be established so quickly. And I think that Maggie's writing did that. And I think Anna did such a brilliant job of that. And I had a really fun time playing those scenes. I loved that flashback scene. That was one of my favorites, honestly.
Yeah, you guys had an amazing, just natural best friend chemistry, which is important. Like the depth of that bond, you guys did an amazing job at selling that from the get-go. And yeah, it's beautifully put.
I was a big fan, I will say, of her character, and maybe because I'm biased, but also we don't get to see enough Asian characters in horror films. So I just want to see more of that. But also, I follow her YouTube. I think it's great. So she puts out a lot of great mental health content. But yeah, I really liked her character.
And as also a dear friend and collaborator. We do a lot of stuff together, she and I. And she had a lot of history in terms of like her own experience and our mutual experience, and she had a lot to bring in. And it was, you know, another one of those like kismet-y things that she was able to do it. She was actually supposed to be starting Jupiter's Legacy, so it wasn't right at the same time. They pushed, and we got to have her, which is really lucky.
Awesome.
Yeah. She also, I remember when when we locked in her deal, she was like, I'm so excited to get stabbed.
It was awesome. That was crazy. The blood. Oh my God.
That shot is like, when we got it, I was like, this really cool. That was one of those days where I'm like, this job is the best.
Yeah, that was also a really great day. I loved that.
You guys just like sitting in that giant puddle. It was that gruesome on that day. And you don't see the like girl off to the side just like pumping
pumping the blood
more. Yeah.
The death scenes in the movie were actually really artistically done. Even though we only had about, I think, 3 of them, they were all really well shot. So I just wondered, how did you go about doing that in this movie?
Sorry. I think I was really encouraged by the producers to, I think a first draft, there was just a lot of stabbing. It was just like multiple stabbings. And they were like, use this space, you know, what's a specific to this environment, and also how can we escalate every single body in the body count, which is like a thing, you know. It's not a traditional slasher. It's not a very high body count, but like it's still there. It's still a component. So it was started a stab, and then how do we get upwards from there? I mean, Eddie's death to me still, well, no, that's not true. Nick's is the worst. And Nick's was hard for me to deal with. I don't know, like on the day, and Sean, the actor, said that he had nightmares about it for weeks. Yeah, because it's really being strangled to death is particularly gruesome. And also the other just funny things, like the insert shot of the guitar string into the neck prosthetic. So this is just like, you just got a piece of neck on a board, and then 2 like burly special effects guys like giggling trying to get a string in there. So that's like why I can actually watch it in a normal. I also love body horror now. After making Valentine, I can watch the goriest because of that day, that guitar string day. There's something humorous about it to me now.
It's a gruesome
I don't know if that
death.
answers your question. Oh, and the electrocution. Also, that was something that was collaborated on with the producers, who were like, the last death has to be bigger and better than anything. What can happen in a rock club that can't happen anywhere else? It's like, well,
that's true.
You get really badly electrocuted. Normally when you get electrocuted, you don't fly in the air and sparks don't fall, but you know. I have unfortunately watched a lot of electrocutions now. As research. Don't recommend it. Don't do that.
My God.
No.
Don't do it. Mistake.
Somebody looks at your search history like,
what?
It was research.
Every time I'm doing a new project, I'm like, somebody looks at my Google search history and I just look like a sociopath. You know, it's bad.
How to get rid of a body.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you the best way. According to the internet, at least. I haven't tried any myself.
Well, I guess Georgia, then,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
See, that was us with our intuition minds. I knew you were going to ask me. I thought I'd get ahead of you. I have to ask then, you know, My Valentine, it's so brilliant. I think everyone needs to check it out, and you know, it's such a great film. I have to ask, you know, of what you're allowed to say, because I know in Hollywood it's all NDAs. What is anyone working on anything? Any future projects for everybody? What's everyone got in the pipeline? What can our listeners be looking forward to each of you that's coming in the next couple of years, now that Hollywood and the world is, well, I don't want to say, it's starting to slowly, hopefully, unravel itself, and we're getting to touch wood wherever it is, everywhere. We're starting to get to a point where we can sort of feel a bit better in ourselves. So what projects have we all got coming up that our listeners can look out for?
Who's taking it? Am I me first? All right. I have a whole bunch of shit I can't talk about. which sucks. Everything is in that stage of maybe you'll see it, maybe you won't, but hopefully next week. Well, I guess the only thing that's been announced is that I'm writing the sequel to Labyrinth, and that is still happening. That's even though the announcement was a long time ago, that's still something that's going on. There are some other films and TV shows that I'm writing that there should be news about in the next couple of weeks, and I will update you all when they can be spoken about. But they are in an eclectic variety of spaces, and one of them is actually a TV project with Anna Akana. So hopefully we can talk about that soon. Yeah,
I'm excited about the sequel. I also really love Scott Derrickson and his work, so I'm super excited. And I saw he was an executive producer on this, but
I also I directed Second Unit on The Black Phone, which is his film, which comes out I think in January, but it's having its world premiere at Fantastic Fest in like 2 weeks. So and I can tell you it is an incredible movie, and one that I'm so honored to have been any kind of part of, because it's an extraordinary movie. I think I can say that without getting in trouble.
I mean, it got one of the biggest responses at CinemaCon. People are so excited. I'm excited for it, but
someone reviewed the fucking trailer. I was like, and the trailer that you can't even watch yet. I was like, when did this is great? But it's that, I mean, it is, I'm biased, but it is that good.
Well, if Sinister is anything to go by, like the heart palpitations that movie gives a person is unnatural. So I'm very, very excited. I can't wait.
It's I think scientifically tested as the scariest movie of all time by heart rate. Yeah. I can't deal with it. I watched it like this.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm really excited for everybody to see that, and I still sometimes sit through cuts and I'm like, I shot that. Like, it's fun. Second Unit was a really good time.
It's awesome. I just had Aftermath on Netflix come out. It's a horror film, another horror film with Ashley Greene and Shawn Ashmore. So go watch that.
I did. Then, I can't spoil it, but there.
Don't.
There were certain things. I'm like, I heard a sound.
I know. I don't really watch that many scary movies for the amount that I feel like I've been in. They're fun to shoot, but I feel like watching is scary. And then, NDAs. So I really can't talk about things without I've made the mistake before and gotten calls from studios like, get that interview down right now. So things that I'm excited for, but can't talk about, unfortunately. That's the bad thing about Hollywood in some ways. You're
of course,
working on
don't get
stuff.
yourself in trouble.
Yeah, by the time you can talk about things, you're like, I've been working on this for 2 years.
or I did that a year ago. Yeah. And I can finally, So.
Well, I'm writing a record right now. So that's very much my focus. I guess that's really, I've just been sort of trying to continue distilling down to all right, work on your project, make music for you. And I did score a short film a couple months ago, and it was sort of like a song and score kind of thing. So that will be coming out eventually. But I'm very focused on the song world right now. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Hadley.
Yes. Look out for that new Dresage. It's fire. I have a movie I scored last year that's coming out November 12th called Double Walker. The trailer's out right now. It's kind of a thriller ghost story. And then also another feature that I scored this year called Linoleum, which it's going to be hitting the festivals. So hopefully it'll be out next
Jim
year.
Gaffigan. No big deal.
Wow. Yeah, it's cool. It's not it's got some funny moments, but it's not a comedy. It's more of a heartfelt indie drama, I guess you could say. So it's pretty cool because I haven't seen Jim Gaffigan do something quite like this. So that was a real joy to score.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to keep an eye out for Yeah.
What's that?
There's lots in the pipeline from everybody.
Yeah.
We're going to keep an eye out for everything. But before we go, I just have to say what you guys create with My Valentine, it's really special. So thank you all for putting this out into the world. I think it's actually a really important movie. I think anyone who should see it, who can see it, please do. If you have it on Hulu, hopefully it'll come to Star in Ireland soon, and in the UK, because that's kind of our Hulu equivalent over here. So over here, watch it as soon as you can. And of course, Warner Brothers and DC, they never do anything correct. But if they do something correct, just let Maggie Levin direct a Joker and Harley Quinn movie. I think that's what we all want.
Poison Ivy. I wanted to.
Ooh,
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not above begging for jobs, you know. Manifesting.
Yes.
Poison Ivy. Because Zatanna is a ship that has sailed. I tried, but Poison Ivy.
This whole team needs to be involved in the Poison Ivy film.
Yeah, damn fucking right. Yeah.
And then you could have Toxic. You could do your own version of Toxic. Oh,
yeah, you have to. Yeah,
I'm telling you.
Did you guys see that meme that was like, you're telling me there was a woman that was like loving plants and the guy that was trying to cool the earth, and we're supposed to root for the trust fund billionaire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you look at Batman and Robin.
The amount of DC villains that have the right idea. I mean, that's why we like them more than the heroes. Maybe it's because you're like you're nuts, but you got a good idea here. Anyway,
applicable.
This was really fun, you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No,
for
thank you.
organizing it.
This was
Definitely. And I think we've got one last question to ask for all of you before we do let you go, because of course this is a horror podcast. We have to ask you, what's your favorite scary movie?
I'll kick it off. It Follows, hands down.
Yeah.
Green Room.
Ooh.
Great choice.
Moving on.
Get Out is mine.
Ooh. Midsummer, maybe?
Ooh, that's a good one. It is like, but that is an emotional journey, that one.
Yeah.
Yo, anybody else trying to wear a bear?
I have read the script, so I think I was maybe less scared, and that's how I got through that movie. Because I was kind of like, how are they going to make this happen? But yeah, so bright and so scary.
The last page of the script, someone put it up on Twitter today, and it was the way that they described the ending of Danny, and like, she is free and she has a smile known only by the criminally insane or something like that, and it just cuts to black. Incredible. It made me look at the ending completely different. Like,
so good.
Love.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it. Thank you. I want to say thank you again to all of you. Thank you so much. It's just been a privilege to have you all here. Thank you, Keeley, Maggie, Britt, and Mark, all of you for joining us today. And I have to say, when I am rich, I'm going to be asking Keeley and Mark to create the song by Katy Perry, The One That Got Away, to a dark version for a film about a psychopath stalking an ex.
Done.
That would be cool.
Shout. This is the agreement right here.
I'll pay you. It'll have to be in about 25 installments. We'll get there. But no, of course, thank you so much to everyone, and thank you, of course, to everyone who is listening today. You can join us again next week when we're going to be previewing the upcoming fall and winter slate of all the horror films for the remainder of the year. And of course, please do not forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Plus, if you haven't already, you can follow us on our social media, which is the good part of social media, not the bad part. We are at The Horror Hour TV on Instagram and YouTube, and you can also keep up with all the news, and the full videos will also be available on our YouTube channel as well. But lastly, I've got a huge thanks to all our guests for joining us today. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing time. And once again, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
You have been listening to The Horror Hour. See you next time.